So today, with the new generation of MacBook Pros coming out in just about 48 hours, I could not be more excited. But I wanted to take a quick break from the new stuff to go back in time and talk about the old stuff. Specifically, I want to examine whether the announcement of the new MacBook Pros has caused a sell-off of people trying to get rid of Intel MacBooks. And so that's what we're going to be examining in today's video. So that's what we're gonna do in this video, and of course, if you're excited about the new generation of MacBooks like I am, make sure to get subscribed because in just 2 days, you're gonna see a ton of content starting to drop right here on this channel. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now you might be wondering, Luke, we're 2 days out from the new MacBooks. We've had leaked benchmarks, we've had hands-on videos. I didn't really want to cover any of those because we're going to talk about it all in like 2 days anyway. So I figured it might be more useful to you guys to get a look into how Intel Mac pricing is doing. That might seem counterintuitive, the new stuff is what everyone's interested in. Why would we care to go check in on used MacBook Pros? Well, there are actually a couple of reasons why we would want to keep tabs on the pricing for these things. Contrary to popular belief, when a new product comes out, the products that it replaces aren't immediately useless. This is something that can get lost in translation when covering tech reviews. I mean, we all love to take a look at the old model and look at the new one and say, wow, the new one is so much better. And that is no doubt what I'm going to be doing with this 16-inch MacBook Pro in just 2 days. However, it has an 8-core Core i9, Radeon Pro 5500M graphics, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and a terabyte of storage. This, at the time, and still, was a powerful laptop. So just because the new ones are probably going to be more powerful doesn't make this useless. And where it gets interesting is when the prices on these things drop enough, then they become a good deal again. Sure, they might not have the same excitement of the new stuff, but if you can get half the performance for less than half the price, is that not a good option? If the new MacBook Pros aren't even within the realm of possibility, then you're probably gonna benefit from the fact that people are selling off their machines to get them. And that's what we're gonna talk about. So let's hop in on eBay. So first off, I like to get an idea of how many MacBooks are actually out there. And as we can see here, there are 18,762 results for the search term MacBook on eBay. If we filter down to buy it now, which I like to do, that's gonna narrow it down to a little over 16,000. Now that's actually quite interesting because that's about the same amount of MacBooks that are usually for sale at any given moment. That's a lot of MacBooks, right? This is a huge market on eBay. Used MacBooks are absolutely everywhere. And so it's a little interesting to see that we don't have necessarily more than we usually do. So let's go ahead and set up a quick eBay search here. Now, I don't like to type in what I'm looking for in the search bar because you tend to get a lot of scammy listings. So for example, if we type MacBook 2018, you're gonna end up with a lot of unibody and really older Retina MacBook Pros, like this one, right? This is like a 2015 or something. Here's another 2015, there's a unibody. Like, why are these showing up? It's because people put OS 2018. This is not how you're gonna find what you're looking for. So I like to keep things simple, just search the term MacBook, then we're gonna go here into the detailed filters. And so what I'd like to do is start with an older generation. So let's start with mid-2015s. The best way to isolate for this is to go down to the GPU, and we're going to find the Radeon R9 M370X. That's the easiest way to filter, and you're only gonna get mid-2015 15-inch MacBooks. You can see that we're settling in here. We've got sub $600 listings pretty frequently. Here's one for $300. It looks like it's got some damage. We got some noticeable wear. It seems like it had, a couple of issues with the display, but that's a working MacBook for $300. There you go. What I'm really interested in is if we go to more recent, more powerful MacBooks, specifically in 2018 when Apple switched to using the 8th gen Intel chips, 6 cores, 2019, 8 cores, and then of course the 16-inch MacBook Pros, which I think if the prices are right on these things, could potentially be a pretty good deal. So let's go back to our eBay search here and filter for some of that. So we're going to filter for Core i7 8th and 9th gen, and then Core i9 9th gen. I'm not particularly interested in the 8th gen Core i9 in the 2018 MacBook Pro because I think there's too many trade-offs with that. You're not gaining a lot of performance of the i7. You are getting a ton of thermal issues, and you're already dealing with the compromises of the butterfly keyboard with that model anyway, so I think it's not worth the trouble. So these are the models that we're going to look for, and I think we're going to find a couple of interesting results. So right out of the gate, we've got a 16-inch sitting here right on top. And this is interesting. This is interesting because, I mean, the way that I look at it, if you are going to go for an Intel MacBook in 2021, it has to do a couple of things for you. Number one, it has to get you decent enough performance to justify the trade-off of going back to Intel, right? That means you're gonna have fan noise. Your battery life isn't gonna be as good. Obviously, you're not gonna get the latest and greatest design. And the other thing is the price has to be really compelling. Those are the two key things. You have to have enough performance that it's even worth talking about, and it has to save you so much money that it's worth taking the plunge. The fact that I'm looking right now at a Core i9, 16 gigabyte, 1 terabyte, 5500M, this is $1,000 less than it was new just months ago, right? This is not a very old machine, and I mean, okay, we've got a dent here on the bottom. We've got really no major issues with this machine. This is an expensive MacBook from just a few years ago, and that was not the case. If you go back in time to like 2016, 2017, 2-year-old MacBooks were really, really strong in resale. They would only depreciate a couple $100. But this is what happens when we have a transition to Apple Silicon. And that is a really interesting price point because this is less than even the base 14-inch MacBook Pro. And as we know, the 14-inch MacBook Pro has the 8-core CPU, which is a downgrade from the M1 Pro. It also has a 14-core GPU. So is it possible that this computer could have pretty close performance, but twice the storage and a larger screen for about $300 less? And don't get me wrong, it's really hard to be objective when we're dealing with a brand new generation of MacBook Pro. We also have to factor in, mini LED, ProMotion, all the additional ports that you're gonna get. There are extra performance-oriented features on the new MacBooks that are worth taking into consideration. But let's take a look here on the rest of eBay results. So you can see here we've got a 2018, this one is misadvertised. It says 2.9 gigahertz, but I checked and it's actually 2018 for $1,230. I probably wouldn't take that chance, but maybe if it was a 2019, that would be compelling for some people. This one I looked at, that's a scam. This one down here, another new listing, that this is someone who is literally just upgrading right now because they're getting the new MacBook. Like, it's pretty clear from the way that this is, look at the monitor that they've got behind them. This is someone that's upgrading and they want to sell at an ambitious price to offset the cost of their new MacBooks. Okay, is this real? This can't be real. Oh no. Looks like Intel happened and melted the keys. It smells strongly of tobacco smoke. Yeah, nobody's gonna be paying $900 for that when they could just buy a MacBook Air brand new. But right below it, look at that, $1,600 for a 1 terabyte. That's like the loaded one. This is interesting, right? You guys, you have to acknowledge the fact that if you're saving enough money, maybe, just maybe, these computers could be worth it. And I think the 16-inch exclusively is where you're gonna be able to find these deals. To be perfectly honest, as someone who has owned a 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 15-inch MacBook Pro over the years, they're not worth it right now. I mean, I've got a 2019 right over there. It's got the same CPU as this 16-inch, and the performance is kind of similar in a lot of cases. But I don't think the trade-off is worth it. You get much better graphics on the 16-inch, you get much better keyboard, that's the big one, and you get a larger display. And you get better battery life, better thermals. This is the way to go. And now that the prices are getting down into like the $1,500 range with Core i9s, that's That is hard to ignore, I will admit. If you look up the 9980HK, which is one of the i9s that Apple used in the 2019 15 and 16-inch MacBook Pros, you'll notice that the Macs are actually less expensive than Windows laptops. That is a unique thing when you're talking about Apple Silicon. That's what happens when you have these new chips that are so much more desirable. So when you look at it that way, right, then you have to think about it for a second, right? This is a Mac, a $1,200 Mac with the same exact processor as a $1,650 Windows laptop. Look, they have the same storage, they have the same RAM. That is so unbelievably wild to me. I mean, Macs have always been more expensive than PCs, but now, if you are an Intel fan, you could be buying one of these MacBook Pros, installing Windows on it, and you could get yourself a PC for less than a PC. Like, what? That's so weird. I mean, just look at this. This is so weird. We've got the cheapest ones here are the MacBooks. The MacBooks are consistently less expensive than the Windows laptops with the same CPU. Do you know how unbelievably strange that is to see? I mean, this is just unheard of. In the past couple of years with Intel MacBooks, they've always been more expensive for lesser specifications, right? You go back to 2019, these things were like $3,000. A comparable Windows laptop was a couple $100 less with better graphics and the same CPU. That's just the way that things worked. But now the tables have flipped. And because of Apple Silicon, you can get these Macs with the same CPUs for less than comparable PC laptops. And so when we're stuck in the Apple Silicon bubble, it's really easy to say, oh, well, I'm not going to buy anything with an Intel processor in it. But when you go back to like the broader picture where PC laptops are a thing and people are still Intel customers, it makes you realize that these things are actually considered pretty good deals. Objectively speaking. I'll tell you, this is so weird to look at, scrolling through these eBay results and just finding consistently $1,300 Core i9 MacBook Pros. It's just absolutely wild to me. I mean, look at this one, for example. This is the 2.4 gigahertz. That's the upgraded i9. It's the 16 gigabyte 512 560X. This was $2,900 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Now it's $1,350. That is what Apple Silicon does to a guy. I mean, that is a major oof. And, you know, if you have one of these things, I have a 2019 15 and 16 inch. That stings, dude. My 2019 15 inch was almost $4,000 when it was new. This thing was $3,299 or something. They're worthless now. If you're buying one of these, maybe you could take advantage of it. But if you're selling one of these, you're probably like, nuts. Fortunately, I don't think the same is going to hold true for these new generation of MacBook Pros. If you are buying one of them, or if you're waiting for my reviews to see if you want to buy one of them, then you, I think, are going to be in a good spot. Because with the ports returning, with a good, reliable keyboard, and with these insane Apple Silicon processors, or hopefully insane, I guess we'll find out in 2 days, I can foresee these things having really, really strong resale value, which will drive down the cost of ownership, and maybe that could help you justify spending a little bit more money to get one of those models. Let me know what you guys think about this topic in the comments below. Would you ever consider buying an Intel Mac ever again? Or are you just, Apple Silicon until the end of time? Let me know that stuff in the comments below. As usual, thank you so much for watching. Get excited. In 2 days, we're going to have some real Apple Silicon content. This is exciting stuff. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. There's going to be a lot of videos here.